Going west, and after I crossed the Mississippi River, I was going still farther west, and I saw off in the distance this lake. It was rather a flatland area, and I saw this lake in the distance. And when I got up there, I saw that it was going to be full of trees. And when I got up to cross the dam, this is just about the scene that I saw. I went across the dam, and I looked all over, looked at this thing, and I went on across the dam and went there. And when I went over about a half a mile, I said, I better go back and look at that thing again. And I saw that little road right there. So I turned around over here and came back and went down in there. And what I saw was this. There was a boat dock down here. And it was fairly late in the afternoon, so I just decided I'd never fished this lake before, so I thought I'd just wait overnight and fish a little while the next morning before I took off on west. And the next morning I parked my car somewhere right in this area, and the next morning about daylight I heard all these automobiles coming in. And I said, didn't take much of imagination to say that, well, it looks like they're going to have a tournament on this lake today. And so it looked like that when they took off, it sounded like a bomber taking off. It looked like that there was about 20 or 25 boats. And they all took off. And all of them disappeared into the timber. That was a big lake. I could hardly see the end up here. I couldn't see it all the way, but generally I could see some of those openings, and later on as I looked at the lake a little bit better, that was the shape of it. So after these people had gone, I launched my boat and started out. I started trolling the shallows here, and I came around here, and the reason I didn't go over to the dam and troll the dam with the small lures was because there was a very little riprap. In fact, it was very small. This was a very broad area right here, and even some dirt was shining at certain spots along there. So apparently they didn't lower this lake very much, and apparently they hadn't got too much wind through there. But anyway, I started out right around this corner. As I went around this corner, I saw this little drainage that showed that there was a channel going up through there, because I could see up through there. So there was a channel coming down through there. So I made a few trolling passes with small lures, and then I got a little bit deeper, and what I found was that there was a hump right here. I kind of expected a hump. Now, why did I expect the hump? You notice that there's no trees here. This dam was quite long, and that's the clean area where I can tell you right now, stay the hell out of the trees, because your presentation of lures is not going to get you in trouble. They had to take the dirt from this spot, and lots of times when they remove this dirt, it looks kind of like a pit, and there'll be humps and things around in this particular pit, so to speak. But this is a clear area. So this hump, I come around with about a 200 lure on the outside of that little break line, that little channel. And just as I got to the base of that hump, it was somewhere around 8 or 9 feet. I got a fish. It was one of those tournament-sized fish, about 12, 14 inches. Well, I made another pass with the same lure, and I hit another fish. So I went to the cast, and I don't know how many fish I caught, but it's quite a few, and they all ran about 13, 14 inches. But before I left there, I always carry a little cork. Now, I didn't say a bobber, I said a cork. And I had a little long line on it, and I had a weight on it. So I just threw this little cork overboard, because I said, well, the small fish are here. I better come back later, because that would be a bigger fish that's going to move in. But it did give me this indication. It told me this: these fish are on the move. Here was a school of small fish up around 8 feet. So I went to work. It should be that this channel was what led these fish up to the base of that hump. So I took that and at that point and went down and found out where it entered this channel coming down through here. I worked that all the way down to that intersection between those two. There was no more fish. So it was very obvious that these fish were deeper. So I came right on down and went deeper along that break line, that channel. And this is what I found. This is the pictures of us. I remember this. This looked just like the situation that I hit. It wasn't more than 10 years ago, so I can remember at least I struck the situation 10 years. Anyway, I made some trolling passes here, and I found out that thing was breaking about long line 100. I found it was breaking somewhere at the top of it about 14 feet. Then as it entered the other channel, it was down just beyond 20 feet. It looked like that when the dredging took, but they removed the little dirt, so that thing dropped off pretty fast right here, and at this point. So I made some passes there with a lure, and I swung around and made a pass like this, and came down and walking down this thing, and just as it walked in this area, this is a very narrow area right here, just as it ran off, just as it started bumping and started coming off, I got a fish. This fish was about 3 to 3.5 pounds. Nice fish. So I swung around and made a pass out through here, and I came up through here, and I swung right this way, and I came right across through here, and just about the time I thought my lure was going to bump, a fish took it while it was swimming free. Now that told me from that little school up there that there was a school of active fish right here. Because on the first, so I went to the cast. The first cast I made to sink into this area where this came together, a fish took it before it hit the bottom. That doesn't happen very much, but this is a real story to me. These fish need to be caught. They are really active. There's a big school of them in there. So I went on the cast, and I'll tell you, I caught quite a few. And after my limit, I just started throwing them back over my head so it wouldn't scatter them. And after, I don't know how long there, but by this time when I catch one, I just let out a rebel yell, you know, I didn't know anybody was around, and I'd throw him back over behind my back into the lake. And I looked up, and there was a bass boat with 2 guys in it coming down toward me, and they got right in here. And that's about when I first saw them. And when so they were watching me, and so I hollered at them. I said, "Come on over, come over." I said, the fish are right here. Well, they was a little reluctant to come because they were bass pros. They never ran into a rat like me before. So I said, "Come on over. They're right here." So I finally got them over to about in here, and I was anchored right in here somewhere. And so they came over, and I said, "The fish are right out there, and it's somewhere around 20 feet, where you got to make your cast, and then, because it's just the break line into the channel from this side feeder stream cut, very narrow. In fact, the fish were on both sides of that where they came together. One of them had a plastic worm. One of them had a spinnerbait. And so they made some casts, and I said, "Well, you got to throw it a little bit farther out there." And so they made a few casts out there. I don't know how many. And I said, "Yeah, just retrieve." So they'd make the cast out there, and I hope you can see that. They held the rod tip high, and it's a tip, tip, tip. Now, how I was catching them. Let me tell you, I told those guys the same thing. I said, "Now watch me, fellas." The fish were there. I'm sure they were still there. I said, make the cast, sink it, watch how I do it, and then sink my line, and then I start winding just about as fast as I can wind, because these fish are active and they're moving. And I said, let me see if they're still there. So I made a cast. Yeah, they're still there. And I landed this fish, about 3 pounds, 3.5 pounds, and I threw them all, or 8. So they made a few more casts. And I said, now, move the lure fast. These fish are not sick. That's what I told them. I said, they're not sick, they're active. They're all balled up there and they're fighting for something between each other. They're in a frenzy, so to speak. So they threw another lure back there. And they come there doing this. I said, speed it up, speed it up. Of course, when they speeded it up, they left it. They left where the fish were, with the type of lure that we're using, the jump lure. So I said, let me see now, fellas. I'm sure they might still be there. And so I made a cast, sunk my lure down, dropped my rod tip, sunk my line, and started cranking real fast. And just as she come bouncing through that brake line and up there, a fish had it. And I said, yeah, they're still there. Now, you won't believe this. I did that 5 times. Now, the last time that I did, the 5th time, was the 41st consecutive cast with a fish. Now, they looked now, they saw me throw them away. They heard me yelling and everything. I never did tell them this. But finally, I said, take this lure. So I cast it across the boat. They took off the spoon plug. And I said, put it on the line. Now, let's see you make the cast like I did. And so a spoon plug, if you don't know how to cast it with an easy throw, you snap cast, it just spins and doesn't go very far. But if you make a smooth cast, it'll just keep sailing, just keep going on out. Well, about the 3rd time, he got it out there. And I said, now let it sink to the bottom. You saw how I did it. Okay, you saw it hit the bottom. Now sink your line so that you can get so you don't lift the lure off the bottom. So he did. He sunk the line. He raised his rod tip up in the air and says, oop, oop, oop. And I said, man, didn't you see what I did? And I said, I'm not going to demonstrate that again. I'm going to make you do this thing right. So he made the cast again, and about the 3rd or 4th cast, I said, get that rod tip down, get that, and you start. I said, now wind her up. So he, I said, wind her up. And so they started laughing, this guy. I said, wind her up. So he wound it up, bingo, he had a fish. He caught, after all, he did catch 5 fish. Then his partner wanted to take it away from him. He said, let me have that lure. I said, boys, I got to go. Throw me my lure. So they threw him in the lure, took it off, and I took off. Now, later on, I was messing around. I want to see how the bass do, and they're sitting in the, so I was in my camper. They didn't know me. I was out, and here all these bass boats started coming in a little later, and I heard these guys talking. The only thing I really heard was this one guy says, it was the damnedest thing I ever saw. And you know, they never knew who it was, or what it was, or they didn't know anything about it. And on top of that, I wasn't about to tell them. But